Hi, welcome for joining us for episode 5 of Unlocking Opportunities. This is navigating the skill challenges in health and social care. And what a lot to navigate. It's a huge area. Um, Thanks for joining us today. This is a collaboration with NCFE and FE News, Unlocking Opportunities, and looking at the missions which our new government is is trying to address. And health and social care, I don't know if you notice, is health, NHS, very high on government agenda. Seems to be covered with everything. We've even getting with the recent white paper around Get Britain Working. Really interesting white paper with NHS and health being really integrated with employability and skills. But we're going to be navigating all of the different sort of nuances of what we're seeing with health and social care, and health. It's massive area. If we look at this, in the NHS, I'm just checking this out, and I've had to ask one of our guests, Lucy, knows all about this. There's 350 different job roles in the NHS, and over 150,000 apprenticeship starts from level 2 to level 7 since 2017, and 282 different apprenticeships used. It's huge. No wonder Lucy's like completely crazy busy everywhere. And we're looking at everything here from entry level, but also we're looking T level, that work placement route for learners to better go in and to progress. Because I don't know about you, but I would rather see a skilled professional looking after my health or my family's health than not. So skills is absolutely key for what we're looking here at that health and social care, and what a massive sector. 3 epic guests today, and we're going to bring them in really fast. So we've got David Gallagher, Chief Executive from NCFE, got Lucy Hunte, who's Senior Apprenticeship Development Manager at NHS England, and Anne-Marie Francis, who's Vice Principal of Curriculum at Wigan and Leigh College. Why don't I bring everyone in, actually? So David, why don't I bring you into the studio? Hey, David.
Hello,
Hey,
Gavin.
Lucy. And
Hello.
hey, Anne-Marie. How are you all?
Morning. Great, thank you.
So, Lucy, I wonder if I could kick off with you from an employer perspective, really, with your role with NHS England. My word, how many different sort of pathways and routes are you looking after? I didn't really appreciate that from all the years that we've been working together. But what are the wider workforce challenges that you're facing at the moment within the NHS? Because the NHS is huge, so many different facets to it. What role can FE and Skills play within partnering and helping you with that?
So FE can play a huge role. I mean, you're probably all aware of the funding financial challenges that we've got. We've got some real challenges around the attraction piece. You know, with young people at the moment, they're hearing that they can earn more as a barista in prep than as a doctor, COVID burnout, things like that. So we've got to really work on the attraction piece, and as well as competition from other sectors. So, for example, my local trust used to have a steady stream from the local colleges, from the job centre, and now we've got an Amazon distribution warehouse that puts on a free shuttle bus that picks them up from all around the town and takes them out and brings them back again. We're seeing those numbers dip. So we really need to work on the attraction piece. We've got huge vacancies at the moment. We've got about 120,000 healthcare support worker vacancies, and they are the essential glue that keeps the clinical teams running. We've still shy of about 35,000 nursing vacancies as well. So we really need to do more. And I think, FE and apprenticeships can really help with us growing our own. We heavily rely on overseas recruitment, and we really need to kind of adjust that balance and make sure that we can attract young people and show them the opportunities. We're the biggest employer in the country. We're stable. We were open all through the pandemic. We're even busier than usual now. So yeah, I think there's a lot that we can do in partnership with FE to make sure that we get the workforce for the future. And T levels are going to be a huge part of that. I know there were some initial teething problems, but I think, looking at the progression and hearing from the colleges and the fantastic young people they're working with, they're all going on to either apprenticeships or traditional routes. And, that's amazing. And we need to make sure that we can support them to grow their careers in the NHS.
Yeah, that's really interesting, saying about the difference you can find with Amazon and the shuttle bus. That's crazy, isn't it? Like, I didn't appreciate that. Anne-Marie, can I bring you in? Like, so obviously you're dealing with a wide range of health and social care qualifications, pathways for people to take. How do you see the landscape at the moment, and how can we sort of improve things, or how is it region to region?
Okay, so it's T-level week, so I'm going to start with T-levels, and I think it's really important to note that in Greater Manchester, we've got high volume of T levels, and at Wigan and Leigh, our health and social care offer is one of the largest in the college. So these qualifications are offering young people outstanding opportunities to really accept, to specialise in their field. They are out in placement from pretty well week 3 of the programme. That gives them the advantage of applying the knowledge that they are learning in the classroom in a real world situation on the wards. Our adult nurses are fitting catheters, taking blood pressures, checking vitals, that on sleep watch, they're doing night shifts. We're working 100% in partnership. And the beauty of that, when they bring it back into their employer set project and into their exam over the 2 years of the programme, means that what you deliver at the end of it is a learner with a real level of sophistication and resilience that is, uncomparable, I think, to any other qualification. However, I think just by what I'm describing, you can hear that's not everybody, and that's not every learner, and it's certainly not every school leaver. And we have to cater for different points of entry and different routes of progression. We're currently in a really fortunate but quite precarious position, because there's a review which is going to be rapid, and we're about to hear, certainly we've been promised before Christmas Eve, although that wouldn't surprise me, that whether or not we're going to keep the funding on the BTEC, which for me at level 3 is that alternative offer for young people for whom the T level isn't the right qualification. So looking at the landscape, we need entry points and we need exit points, and we also need young people to be able to get off, able to either step into the workplace or progress onto an apprenticeship or onto higher education. So we're currently sitting on a very broad, but I would argue not complicated, set of qualifications that do currently offer some progression. We need more. We need more progression opportunities plugging into that. And I'm really sort of hopeful, but dubious about what the review is going to tell us to keep that progression there. And good news, Lucy. As hearing what you were saying, there's been unhelpful messages about the NHS is broken. And I think young people wanting to study health and social care very often think that their future is the NHS. So that was depressing numbers for a while. And we were concerned that those numbers would not reverse and grow again. We have had incredible growth. And this year, just exponential additional groups, not only of T level, but also of BTEC and at level 1 and level 2. So the charm is not broken. Young people do want to work in the sector and can, see that they can fulfill their dreams and ambitions in both health and social care. Just crossed the road with one of our students called Caitlin. I said, "How are you?" She said, "I'm not well today, Anne-Marie. But I'm coming in." I said, "Because you've got exams in January?" She said, "Yes." She's a BTEC level 3 health and care student. And I said, "Do you want to do nursing?" She said, "No, I want to be a social worker." And they're just in its own example. She's not well. She's powering through. She's prepping for her exams, and she wants a social work sector. She's 17. That's what we do in FE. We facilitate that for people, but we need the pathways.
Yeah, no, definitely. And can I say to everyone as well, look, who's joining us live, we're live. If you want to ask any questions of our free guests, please feel free to do so. If we can't answer them, I can't see any reason why these 3 experts wouldn't be able to answer any of your questions, really. But if we can't, we'll come back to you with the answer as best we can. David, can I bring you in? It's really interesting. We've got a government which, is saying with one breath, weren't they, really, like around, as Anne-Marie was saying, NHS is broken, which is not the greatest messaging in the world. But also we're seeing the importance of health and social care coming into white papers, coming into looking at blending intersectionality. That's on a policy level. But what can everyone in the sector do? Because you sit on many things with CEO hat for NCFE on an awarding organisation, but also with social impact charity as well. What can we all do as a sector to come together and make an impactful change?
I think a lot of the answers lie in what Anne-Marie spoke to there. So if I step right back, so when we had apprenticeship reform it was very clearly about putting employers at the centre of the system. And T-levels was a continuation of that, where the employer essentially, theoretically, was supposed to sort of determine what good looked like in terms of programs that would lead to competence and people that would be fantastic for their future workforce. And of course, the employer view of that is hugely, hugely important. And I'm not suggesting it's not. However, what I think got a little bit lost, both in apprenticeship reform to some extent, and then arguably in T-levels, is actually, it's not just about employers. It's about a diverse range of learners and their starting points, their hopes, their dreams, their ambition, their potential, and what is going to be accessible for people at different ages, different stages, different starting points. And then, of course, it's also got to be about the capacity, the capability, the readiness of providers to be able to meet those employers' needs. And unless you bring those three pieces together, you're not necessarily going to design programs that are accessible for all, that provide all of those different pathways that Anne-Marie alluded to. And even if you do, sometimes it's going to take some time for providers to adapt to new qualifications, to be able to deliver them in a way that's expected, to a standard that's needed, and for employers even to get used to things like facilitating pretty sizable work experience placements. And so the reason I say that, I think from a policy perspective, theoretically, the rhetoric that's coming out of government, it's coming out of DFE and soon to be Skills England, is that they are going to listen more carefully to the needs of learners, the needs of teachers and teaching institutions, even the needs of sorts of unions, to have their say on what's fit for purpose. And if they stay true to that promise, then I think we will end up with a range of different programs that suit such a diverse range of learners' needs that enable them to take the steps towards their chosen career, if they have indeed actually chosen a direction for their career at that point. We need to remember that many 16, 17, 18-year-olds are still not sure. Anne-Marie has got, I met with Anne-Marie's team a few times over the last year, and they meet so many learners that are crystal clear. I want to be a social worker. I want to be an early years educator. I want to be a nurse, and that's fantastic. But it's not necessarily everybody. And therefore, that in itself tells us that we've got to have a diverse range of pathways through. And I use this example all of the time. She's just gone out, so she's not going to hear you rating. It's anecdotal. But when my wife was 16, she went to college and did a GNVQ. She sort of thought she might want to go into nursing. She then went on to do a diploma at university. Years later, did a degree, and then her master's. But she did a GNVQ. And what was wrong with that? She's gone on to have over 20 years successful as a clinical nurse practitioner in the NHS. But at 16, she didn't know. And when I have taken her through some aspects of the T-levels, she's looked at it and said, do you know what, David, at 16, I don't think I would have had the confidence or the academic ability to do that. But it doesn't mean she couldn't go on to be an incredible nurse and have had a fantastic career. And I know it's a sample size of one and it's anecdotal and people will have heard that 100 times from me before. But I think it just talks to the truth of this, that we've got to make sure that we've got a range of programs that absolutely are designed in conjunction with employers, but equally and as importantly, if not more so, that we think about this diverse range of learners that come to the doors of FE, from entry levels all the way through to level 3, and making sure that they can start to take the steps towards a sector that can provide fantastic careers for people. So I think it really is part of the answer, I think, is in what Anne-Marie described, and it really is about DFE and Skills England staying true to that promise to bring all of those stakeholders together to design the policy and to design the programmes so that they meet far more people's needs than they are today, that meets then these major acute skills challenges that the sectors are facing.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point around Skills England, keeping to that word of the essence of what they were talking about, and also the flex that is being mentioned a lot around local needs as well, because Anne-Marie alluded to this, not the same everywhere. There's different needs in different regions. Lucy, can I talk to you and maybe ask a bit of advice around thinking around the work experience piece? So from David's wife and from many of us that have come across like young people, that work experience piece is so important to experience what it's like to be work ready, but also to taster, isn't it? Is this something I want to do for the rest of my life? You know, is this something that I want to then progress and move on to? It's that actual work experience which is actually living it, isn't it? Is the, you know, is this something for me? So what sort of advice would you give around work experience, and how important is that for you as an employer with multiple trusts and multiple areas? But how can we encourage more work experience, or what are those things that unlock it? If it was a college or a provider looking at this, how can we unlock more work experience opportunities?
So, I mean, I think that's two-pronged. Work experience when you've got a young person deciding what they want to do and if T-level BTEC is the right route for them. So I think on our NHS Health Careers websites, we've got a lot of kind of interactive day in the life videos, because you might hear the term chiropodist, podiatrist, but what does that actually mean? So we've got some really, really useful videos, because we know young people like obviously have that visual learning, so that's a really good starting point. But yeah, we are working with trusts to make sure that they have fair access for work experience, and not just for the schools that have got that dedicated person that can, you know, pick up the phone and hound employers, and the schools, you know, where they leave the young person to go and find that. That's really, really challenging. So we are, you know, working and making sure that, you know, we can give people those taster days and work experience sessions. In terms of the industry placements for the T levels, I mean, my advice would be to engage with the employers as early as you can, like before you enroll the learners. Far too often, me and also our T-level AOC counterparts are have to get involved where they've been on program for like 18 months, and then suddenly, you know, we need to get the industry placements. So, I mean, Anne-Marie's got great programs running, and I think, you know, certainly for health, there's lots of factors in terms of the DBS and inoculations and uniform, and so you really need to make sure that you're planning those well in advance. But yeah, I do think, you know, work experience is really, really powerful. Another avenue is volunteering as well, though. So if you can't get a space on a work experience program, a lot of trusts have volunteering, and also in social care homes. So whether that can just be, you know, conversations, helping with tea, helping with mealtime, you know, personal care, then I'd definitely explore that. And I do know that for traditional routes, for traditional applications, those that have done, you know, some sort of volunteering are definitely viewed as kind of higher caliber. So I mean, I know it's difficult, but I would definitely recommend, if you can't get a place on a work experience program, then definitely try and volunteer, because, you know, your intentions would be really well received.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really helpful advice there. Anne-Marie,
Yeah.
could I ask you around, you've given already like individual like sort of learner experiences and stuff like that, and the people that you're working with at the moment, but what are some of the common challenges which are being faced, because this is unlocking opportunities? So are there any barriers that you're sort of seeing with students, and are there any sort of success stories that you can give? And I think it's interesting to come from like Wigan and Leigh College perspective, but is this consistent throughout all of the country, if you know what I mean? Like, is there
Yeah.
gaps, patches, if you know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm still feeling a little bit sick at the thought of someone being 18 months into program and not having a placement, and how you come back from that. So, but to start at the sort of back end of your question, it is regionalized, because obviously your accessibility for your placements does depend on your relationship with, in our case, for our clinical placements, the NHS Trust, WWL, which is Wigan and Wrightington NHS Trust. But we also have healthcare settings outside of the clinical setting as well, and we need to build those relationships and have them very firmly established and work in partnership continuously, because it's not just about the hours on placement, it's got to be about the quality of the placement as well, and what the students are getting out of that, and what the employer is getting out of that, and how we quality assure that, and we move that placement forward, because they can't do the same thing all of the time and then expect to come back into college and succeed in really rigorous examination and assessment activity if what they're learning in placement isn't complementary and in fact enhancing what they're learning in the classroom. So there's no way that is standardized across the country, and we really do need for people to unlock opportunities for our learners much more readily and much more rapidly across the piece. I came up with an idea the other day, because we have we're a World Skills Centre of Excellence, and one of our T-level students, Millie, was a finalist on World Skills, ended up on the World Skills squad. But I was chatting to some of the colleagues and peers at a assessment roadshow, who said that they were running A-level provision, some T-level, and they said, we can't really get into world skills. And I suddenly thought, what if we got some flexibility around the placement time to do world skills coaching with employers? So you don't necessarily need to be in a setting. You're actually working with somebody, coaching you for World Skills UK competition. So if there's anyone who can move any policy or influence on that, and I do welcome in T-level, we have had some flexibility on the placements in terms of work set projects, for example, and a little bit more digital and remote learning, which isn't necessarily applicable to healthcare, but does let us know that, you know, we're being heard about some changes. In terms of success stories, you know, all our learners are success stories. The positive progression that they achieve at each point is critical to us helping them to become the person that they've set out to be when they've joined us. And David's absolutely right. They don't always know what that direction of travel is. And work experience and industry placements can help them to learn that and learn more about themselves. So it's not just T-level who go out, and colleagues in FE will be, you know, nodding. Our study programme learners are also out either in work experience or work-related learning to secure that for them. And it is really, really important. But it's also not everything. They do need to be prepared for the exams, and the exams are tough. And we've talked about teething troubles earlier. Some of those teething troubles are around recognising that we've got to learn the science and the health and the maths and the English, and they are barriers to some of our learners. So we need the hours on programme in there as well. And that all links back to funding for FE, funding for students. We need enough funding per student to ensure that we can give them the hours on programme that they need to tackle the breadth of the qualifications and the learning around the qualification, and have some fun and some enrichment and make some friends. You know, there's a whole lot of life to be lived, and 2 or 3 years in college for some of our learners needs to be more than just an assessment cycle. So for me, that's where we could do with standardising a little bit more and working together to unlock those opportunities.
Yeah, sounds cool. Thanks, Anne-Marie. David, can I bring you in again? Like, we've talked, it's T-level week this week, so we're going to be talking about sort of entry level, but we're also can be looking at, you know, level 2 to 7, you know, and what does that mean? We've got so many NEETs, you know, like 900,000 NEETs. It could be up into a million. We've got more economically inactive than what we have got people claiming employability benefit and stuff like that. It's such a messy sort of like place at the moment, is it? This seems like an obvious place where FE and skills can step in to be able to step in to bridge this gap, but also to be able to help the health and social care sector. What are your sort of views on what we need to be sort of thinking of, or where we're at? 'Cause we're going through so many different curriculum assessment reviews. There's so many, like, it's wave after wave after wave of announcement. But how can we navigate this, and how can we make a change in health and social care?
Yeah, so I've clearly got to that point in my career, Gavin, that I wasn't sure that I would get to, where I go back to 20 years ago and something that we sort of tried then that I still think is a good idea now. So when I worked for the Learning and Skills Council in the good old days, as we tend to think about them now, one of the huge agendas was integrated employment and skills. But it also then started to branch out into thinking about, well, how could that integrate with justice, for example, and it was restorative justice at the time. How could it then even start thinking about health outcomes? So there was a programme that some of you that are familiar with the DWP world will remember, which was Flexible New Deal, and then it became Work Programme, and actually improving health outcomes was part of the programme, as well as improving job outcomes. And so, you know, 20 years ago, literally, it's scary to think of that, integrated employment skills, that was something that we talked about a lot. And then we started thinking about all of these other things that intersect. And obviously justice and health are just two really good examples of that. And I had hoped that when Skills England was first heralded, that it would be this pan-government skills organisation that stitches the skills needs into every other department. So what are the skills needs for Department of Health? What are the skills needs that sort of tie to immigration, for example? What are the skills needs that are going to drive business and the economy and entrepreneurship and enterprise? And we haven't got that. I don't think that's where we're going to end up with Skills England. So then where I take this is, okay, so what can we do from the bottom up to really start stitching these things together? So when you look at something like Get Britain Working that came out last week, okay, 280 million, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you break that down regionally and then think about sectors, it's not a huge amount. But should we, as the skills sector, as the FE sector, saying, okay, we know that we've got major challenges and opportunities in health and social care. We've got Get Britain Working. We've got a lot of needs and a lot of vacancies. What are the sector-specific and regionally tailored programmes that we can deliver, possibly weaving together DWP funding alongside skills funding to deliver a solution for a sector? And could we even be bringing in mayoral combined authorities to think about devolved funding, so we get smart in terms of how we knit these different policy areas, these different government departments, these different funding streams together to deliver coherent responses that meet the needs of particular sectors and particular employers and the learners, the I think we'll call participants on good old work programme, can actually find programs that then best meet the needs. And if you just think about that, you put together a handful of colleges with maybe an awarding organisation that can design a program, with mayoral combined authorities, with NHS trusts, and you come together in a region to deliver a solution to the sector, not just programs that meet some of that need. Because I think one of the challenges we've had for a very long time is that the previous government were sort of, right, apprenticeships is here, T-levels is here, boot camps is here. Who was ever actually thinking about stitching this together in the skills world? But let's go beyond that and think about, we're seeing the NHS increasingly do their own thing because the FE funding's not meeting their needs. Well, how could FE work to enable you to do that? Devolve funding, DWP funding. So, and that is, I mean, it sounds easier. Well, it doesn't sound easy, but it sounds easier than it will be in reality because it'd be really challenging. But I think it's about stakeholders coming together with a regional focus, a sector focus, and looking across the range of different opportunities for funding and programs to be stitched together in different and better ways. Sorry, Gavin, That was a very long answer.
No. It's like absolutely spot on. That's brilliant. I think that's amazing around, and like you're saying, it's going back 20 years is sort of then what can we fast forward and learn and bring forward. We're nearly out of time, but I want to ask everyone, we ask it on every episode, if you could unlock one opportunity, what would it be? Lucy, what would you want to unlock?
Just the maths and English barriers. I think, not just for T-levels, but just for young people in general. I think if we could have contextualised maths and English, a nurse doesn't need to understand Pythagoras' theorem. They need to do blood pressure and medication and weight. So I just think that's, it's a massive barrier for all sectors. And I really think government need to look at that.
Sounds great. Anne-Marie, what would you want to unlock?
Level 2 progression opportunities. As I said at the very start, T-levels are fantastic, but they're not for everyone. I don't want level 2 learners to be capped. Currently, they're stepping off at that stage. Their earning capacity is limited because of the competencies attached. So let's let them have a leaping off point into higher level that is more accessible for some of our learners, with maths and English knitted in.
Sounds cool. Thanks, Anne-Marie. David, what would you want to see unlocked?
I'm tempted to say the level 2 business admin apprenticeship just to get a laugh out of Lucy, but I'll go
Watch
for
this space. Watch this space.
Yeah, I know. Brilliant. Finally. Do you know what I would say? Teachers. And what I mean by that is more trust in teachers, more flexibility, hopefully better pay, and some more time to do some of the creative side of designing, developing, innovating, improving, sharing good practice. And Anne-Marie and the team at Wigan and Leigh are a brilliant example of they're finding ways to do that despite the massive constraints of funding and time. They're finding a way to develop good practice and share it. They're not keeping it to themselves. But if we could unlock all of the brilliant teachers and all of that latent potential that we've got in the sector by just freeing people up a little bit and a bit more freedom, a bit more flexibility. I think it would advance us so quickly. And the reason I say that is constraints of funding, constraints of time, very heavy compliance regimes, huge burden of assessment, burnout of teachers, second-class citizens in terms of pay at times. It's not good enough. If we want world-class technical education, and we also want and should expect world-class healthcare, it's sort of, I think a big part of the answer is right there.
Here.
That's brilliant. What 3 brilliant unlocks. Thank you, everyone. Time's completely gone. I just wanted to say thank you, David, Lucy, and Marie. What a really good show today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's a final episode next week, so join us Thursday next week, 10 a.m. It's the last episode. I feel a little bit weird about that, but thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Good show.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.